Hey everybody, welcome to this video on OBXD. I'm looking at OBXD 3, so at the time of making this video, that is the latest version. It's actually OBXD 3.5. I think this has been out in this version on desktop for a while, I'm not sure, but it just came out for iPad today. It's not available for iPhone. I'm looking at the iPad version here. It's basically identical to the desktop version. So even if you're a desktop user, this video will be useful for you. So this new version is $15 on the App Store. I saw the price in euros earlier. It was 100 euros. I don't know, is it $100 and £100 or are they slightly different? But I saw the price in euros. It was 100 euros. Now there's also a free version you can download for desktop. If you're going to use it non-commercially, you get a free version which doesn't have any audio dropouts or anything like that. But if you want the commercial license, that is 100 euros. So this is a beautiful sounding synth based on the Oberheim OB-X. This is a really highly regarded plugin in terms of sound. But the first big difference was, look, the old one had honestly a really pretty ugly UI. Now that UI could resize a little bit, but it quickly became pretty unusable. Now the new one, let's see how that resizes. So this one does not resize. You know, that is a pity. I like how apps like this resize. Physica by Fred Anton Corvest. This is, you know, this is what we should really be seeing with every app. So, you know, definitely taking a mark off for that. So I'll go through the UI. If you don't know, if you have this synth, for example, and you don't understand how to use it or something, this video will also be useful for you. But I'm not going to demo tons of presets or anything. It's mainly going to be an information type video with some little demos here and there. Let's look at the UI. So the master section, that is basically the same as in the old one. The fine tuning, you can bring your sound up or down a semitone, and chorus goes up or down 1 or 2 semitones. Then in the global section, that's pretty much the same, but we do have one of the differences here, and that is that in unison mode, you can change the number of voices. The old one had a unison mode, but it didn't have any way to change the number of voices. But so far, I have not found that it's that big an advantage to change the number of voices. Let's just, so one thing, when you turn on unison, you're going to have to re-trigger. Now, we can definitely hear the difference there, okay? Let's put spread up a little bit. So I'm not saying that, you know, turning on unison doesn't make a difference, but what I'm saying is that the number of voices does not make a huge difference. It does make some difference. So is that important to you? Might be, might not. Then we have legato mode. I won't explain those kind of things. They're all pretty basic Synth 101 stuff. Then we set the maximum polyphony. We have oversampling. So this is one of the new features, but the old one also had a high quality mode here, this HQ button. So I'm not 100% sure, is there really much difference? I have tried various sounds and pushing the filter and everything quite hard in this, with oversampling off and oversampling on ×2 and ×4. I have not heard any aliasing or anything that I noticed with it off. Now, then just a little UI difference. This is the menu button in this new version. And here it's this. And I haven't gone through and seen are there any differences in how that works, but it looks pretty much the same. This is where you change the way that it will allocate voices when you exceed the polyphony maximum. Will it keep the last voice played or keep the lowest voice or what? It has MIDI learn, and this is where you clear your MIDI learn. I have not been able to get this working inside the AUV3. I did get it working in standalone, and the way it works in standalone is press MIDI learn, tweak a knob on the UI, then tweak a knob on your MIDI controller, and they should be assigned. Then you would press clear if you want to clear that. I have mentioned to the developer that this is not working in the AUV3 and he's going to look at it. That is not a big deal for me because apps like AUM, okay, the host app that I'm using here, they have their own inbuilt ways of assigning modulation anyway. And I usually just use those, so it's not important. I'm just mentioning that I haven't been able to get that working in the AUV3. So then we go to the oscillators, and let me just check what I'm on here. Okay, let's stay with this. So here we change the pitch of oscillator 1 there and oscillator 2 here. And we have pulse width, so that's all there in the old one. But there are some new things related to pulse width in this. We have detune as well. Now, the way this works is not super intuitive. So if we turn these off, then now we're hearing triangle waveforms. So if I put this on, now oscillator 1 is a triangle and oscillator 1 is a sawtooth, oscillator 2 that's still a triangle. So here they're both sawtooths. So here we have square or pulse waveforms depending on whether we adjust pulse width. And with both on, then that's a ramp. Now down here, this can control the filter envelope, how much that will modulate pitch. So if we make changes to the filter envelope settings, that will affect how that sounds. Then here we can make the filter envelope modulate the pulse width. Let's put these to pulse. Okay, then we have cross modulation. So that's there also in the old one. So that will use oscillator 1 to modulate oscillator 2. And we can sync. So oscillator 1 will be the master, oscillator 2 will be the slave. So then when we change the frequency of oscillator 2, it will just change the timbre. It won't actually change the pitch of oscillator 2 the way it will if sync is off. If step is on, then when we change pitches here, they will be quantized to semitones. If step is off, we'll get smooth changes. Turn sync off. So smooth. stepped. Here we adjust the brightness, and here we can offset the pulse width of oscillator 2 using this knob. Okay. Control section. I think I remember that this is all there in the old one as well, if I'm not mistaken. If you turn on bend octave, then when you use the pitch wheel on your synth, it will be able to do pitch bends up to an octave rather than just a semitone or two, whatever it is, when you've got that turned off. I'm not using a pitch wheel at the moment, so I won't demo that. Bend oscillator 2, here you'll toggle whether when you use the pitch bend, it will affect both oscillators or just oscillator 1, I think it is, or oscillator 2. Anyway, in one setting, both will be affected. In the other setting, only one will be affected. Vibrato rate, this will just affect how the rate of the mod wheels vibrato. And filter envelope velocity and amp envelope velocity, this will just affect the velocity of your keys that you play in. Will they modulate the filter envelope and the amp envelope? Down here, the preset menu, if you tap here, you can scroll through different banks. And if you press this disc thing, then now you can scroll through different preset types collected from the ones that are spread across those other banks. So that is something that this old one didn't have, unless I'm mistaken. It had the banks, but it didn't have any way to just, you know, search across the banks for all the pads or all the keys or whatever. Mixer, okay, this is just the level of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, and we can add some noise. Now, let me change here the filter. So this is new. If you press this push, it will enable self-oscillating filter. The old one did not have that. Now, I find that this UI is some things, like I was pressing push there, I'm pressing it now and I'm finding it hard to turn on and off predictably. So basically the touch areas for some of the buttons in this are a little bit too small. I've mentioned this to the developer. Also, I found it very hard with some of the frequency knobs to dial in the value that I want to dial in quickly and accurately. I've mentioned that to the developer and he appreciated the feedback, so that's great, and is going to look at improving that. This is something that I increasingly have very little tolerance for, because it's really destroying my enjoyment of using the iPad to make music, quite frankly, because so many apps do not implement good knob control. So it is really important, unless developers always make it possible that you can dial in a value on a knob quickly and accurately, then the iPad will be treated as a toy and not a serious tool for musicians. That really annoys me. So developers, please do your knobs properly. You know, maybe vertical for coarse movements and horizontal for fine movements. I love how Beep Street do that. Dagger, for example, you know, you can just get very, very fine changes when you're doing horizontal movements. Everything should have that level of accuracy. I know some people don't like to hear anything negative. I think it's very important to point out the flaws and things. That's how stuff gets better. Stuff gets better. It's good for users. It's good for developers. It's good for the whole ecosystem. So back to the filter. So we have cutoff, resonance, envelope amount. Okay, your usual stuff. So here's the filter envelope. Key track will, playing higher keys, for example, open up the filter more. And then very important one here, the mix. So basically we can morph between a low pass and a band pass filter or a high pass filter. Something wrong with the UI right here. It must be something about the sizing. I don't think that was hidden earlier, but it's a bit hard to see the HP there. So if we have this on, then here that will actually be a notch filter. Oh, sorry, no, that will be band pass. And if this is off, then it is a notch. And here we can control the steepness of the filter. Then here we have the LFO section. So let me switch to this. So let's look at the way this works. So here we've got our LFO rate. Now here we can have it free or synced. We have the frequency amount, and this just means how much the LFO will, how deep the modulation will be of the frequency of oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or the filter. So at the moment it's set up that only oscillator 2's frequency is being modulated. And I've set it here that we've got a sample and hold LFO there. So if I change it like this, then now we've got a square wave. And here it's a sine. And then I can reduce that rate. And I can reduce the amount if I want. So we can have all three types of LFO on, or just two, or just one, or none. And then here, the LFO can affect the pulse width of oscillator 1 and or oscillator 2. So here we would increase the amount of that. So I'm going to turn this one off so we no longer have modulation of the oscillator frequency. We only have modulation of pulse width amount. I forgot to turn on the LFO type. I was thinking, what's going on here? Let me change it to sample and hold. There we go. So now it's only modulating the pulse width of oscillator 2. And there only oscillator 1. And then a new thing here in the filter envelope section is that you can invert the filter envelope, and you can also change the attack of the filter envelope. So you can basically slide this along. So you can kind of slide between logarithmic and linear attack. So the filter envelope, like let's say I put the filter envelope on the pitch using this pitch envelope amount. So you can hear the difference there with that inversion. So, you know, with the self-oscillating filter and the ability to invert and the ability to change the attack, These are definitely significant upgrades, I think. And the filters in this do sound really good, don't they? So then in the amp envelope, you also can adjust the attack like that. And then we've got the voice variation section. And everybody, if you're enjoying this, do please smash the like and so on. And write a comment if you've got time. Thanks. So voice variation. Here we can turn on things that will basically make it behave a bit more analog. So this will change something related to the sound of the filters. I forget the technical details. It'll be there on the site. It's some kind of modeling, you know, of how it works in the analog gear. You can get some variation in the filter slope. What is this one again? GLD slope. Oh, that's for the glide, yes. And some, variation in the envelope, and then in the panning of different voices. So let's just play around with those a little bit. So let me just hit the same note a bunch of different times. Well, it's not all that noticeable, but there's some there's some variation in there. And here we're getting, and you can hear that clearly, variations in the panning of the voices. It's a bit different every time. So there you go, everyone. I hope that helps you to decide whether it is worth upgrading from the old one if you have it. As I say, there are tons of other videos demoing presets, and yeah, you can also just download the free trial for desktop if you want to have a play with this before buying it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.